Welcome to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast for club owners, operators, and fitness professionals. Each week, host Bryan O'Rourke brings you an expert interview with a global influencer at the crossroads of fitness and technology. You gain the insights, tools, and inspiration you need to stay connected to the pulse for what matters most for your business in the age of exponential technologies.
Welcome, listeners, to the podcast. I'm so glad you joined us today. It's already almost April. Can you believe it? And we had a great Ursa, of course, in Los Angeles. Shout out to everybody that I got to see. And for those that I didn't get to say hi to, I'm sorry I missed you. The good news is the European Health and Fitness Forum in Cologne, right before FIBO, is coming up in a little over 2 weeks, so about a week from the recording of this podcast, probably when it's published. And I so look forward to seeing all my friends. I actually contributed to Europe Active's book that's coming out on strategic management. So I hope you will try to get a copy of that from our colleagues at Europe Active. And hope to see you. I will be at the Core Health and Fitness booth, and I'll be going around seeing our Fitness Plus Technology listeners and our Fit Tech Council friends and contributors at that show, which is always awesome. Well, today we have a terrific guest in Spencer Honeyman, who I've known now for, I guess, about 6 or 7 years. When V first came out, and he is now the Chief Commercial Officer for V Technologies, you might have remembered it was like a headphone thing with a human-type voice that was a coach. And since that time, Omri and his team, the CEO, have evolved the business into enterprise AI for health, which is a pretty timely pivot, which they've been under for a couple of years now. Spencer is going to share a lot of information about what VI Enterprise for Health is, what it means. We're going to explore cost per acquisition, lifetime value. We're going to talk about artificial intelligence in general and various use cases for applications of these tools for businesses. He has a lot of great insights as an entrepreneur. He has been involved with a number of startups, and Spencer is a really thoughtful pro, and so I'm so glad we had him on. So anyway, without further ado, let's welcome Spencer to the show. Hello, listeners, and as I said in the intro, we have the pleasure of having Spencer with us today, the Chief Commercial Officer for V. Spencer, where do we find you on this call this morning? Where are you?
Thanks for having me, Bryan. I'm excited to get to chat today and speak to this audience. Based just outside Boston, about half an hour west.
And we had met originally, 5, 6 years ago, was it? Or something like that?
I think so. Small wellness world. And I think we left the call saying our paths will cross more formally. So excited to do so today.
Spencer, you did say that. You actually did say that. I do remember that. Spencer, you have a very interesting background, starting with a legal training and then moving into startups and doing a number of different things. I'm curious about your journey in the startup world, and then what kind of let you join the team at V. Tell me your story.
Yeah, I think it was a brief / non-existent legal stint, but I went to school for it. So I would say growing up, always, I didn't know at the time, but an entrepreneurial mindset and curious, especially about technology. And both my parents are attorneys, which you could argue should have made me not want to be an attorney. No offense to those listening, but I became interested in law, specifically around M&A and corporate law. And so I went to school, and one summer I got an opportunity just through a friend of a friend to intern at a startup. And that was kind of the switch went off in my head. I really enjoy this. It doesn't feel like work. And I made the pivot. And ever since then, V's my third full-time startup, and passionate about the startup community, advising and helping where I can on the go-to-market side.
So what led you to V? I mean, you were doing a number of different things. Tell me the kind of hook. What got you involved?
I'm going to give you the true story. It's an interesting one. So I was at my second startup, which was actually using virtual reality to help people get motivated to have fun and move their bodies. So then kind of like We Fit on steroids for VR. topic for another day. And we were at CES, and V was in the booth next to ours. So it was fortuitous. And one of the investors and I just started chatting, and he was like, "Hey, like, have you met Omri, the founder and CEO of V?" I hadn't. We started chatting. I joined the advisory board about 6 years ago. So V was in its infancy and hadn't fully figured out what it wanted to be when it grew up, which we are well on our way now and excited to talk about. And so got to know Omri, and one thing led to another, as they say, and here I am.
A great story. Of course, shout out to Omri. We have had a number of interesting conversations. A great guy. So V, enterprise AI for health. Talk about what the company's doing in general.
Yeah, what does that really mean is a good question, right? And so I think what we're doing at V, it starts with our mission. And it's been this way since even before I joined 6 years ago, which is how do we help people stick to healthy and active lifestyles? And we have like a big sign in our office that says being healthy is hard. And everyone has their own health journey and own challenges. We all have our stuff, as I like to say. And the way we help people become healthier is we work with large health organizations. So it can be on the wellness side, it can be a health club, in-home connected fitness, nutrition coaching. We work with large health plans more around disease and care management. We work in the pharma space to help them enroll rare disease patients in clinical trials or get them taking the right drugs. And so what we've done is productize or SaaSify, to use a non-real word, powerful data science capabilities to help large health organizations better serve their members. So our customers, if you will, are these businesses, and they have very large member bases that we help them better engage.
And so some of the principles, I mean, that when you say better engage, as you well know, that there's a lot of complexity or dynamics behind that. So, and I know that we talked before about things like attribution and cost, per acquisition, and things like lifetime value. There's the concepts of those things, right, Spencer? And then there's actually executing those things. Can you inform the listeners about what that means?
Sure. So we think about, call it business KPIs, right? That inherently in health and wellness, which is pretty awesome, are linked to health outcomes. So we believe that our customers are providing a service or a product that's going to help people become healthier. So how do we get more of the right people using it more for longer? And so to make that more practical, so what we do at V is we access de-identified data from our customers. So let's take a health club as an example. It would be de-identified information. So member ID, age, gender, zip code. It would be their engagement, which can be in person, like a club visit, a personal training session. It can be virtual. What's their contract type? Are they month to month? Are they annual? Are they a Medicare fitness or corporate wellness customer? And we look at all this historical data and we enrich it with data we license. So what we're looking at is not matching it to a specific individual necessarily, because there's all sorts of compliance for very good reason, but we'll look at what do people like Bryan? What do they search? Where do they go? What type of media do they consume? Do they purchase an at-home A1C kit, which means someone in their household might be diabetic and they might be looking for very different types of products and services. And so we take that data set from our partner, which we don't share with any other customers, we enrich it, and we basically help them on the acquisition side, the customer acquisition cost, be really precise with targeting with paid media. So if you're deploying on Google and Meta and TikTok or connected TV or direct mail, we don't touch the content, what your ad should be, so to speak, but we help you say, hey, this is my customer. Here's the prospects that really look like them. And hey, we can see mobile ID 1234 already goes to a competitor. They've been going there for 6 years. It's a quarter mile down the road. Let's not spend our dollars there. Let's spend it on people who are more likely to convert, what we call the persuadables. And so that would be the acquisition portion of the member journey. And then once someone becomes a member, whether it's at a health club or it's a diabetes management program, or you're taking a cancer drug, what we do is we, again, use that historical and ongoing data. And what we try and do is help our customers be really predictive and personalized. So going back to the being healthy is hard, once someone disengages or they cancel, you could have the best email, say the best thing on the phone. It's too late, right? The train has left the station. So how do we predict weeks or months in advance when that inflection point is going to occur? And then create a framework so they can surface the best phone call, email, text, what to push in the app, what to say in person. So it's very personalized and efficient through their existing CRM or communication tool and team. So to be more succinct, we sit between data, which we enrich, and any outbound tool or channel to be really precise, predictive, and personalized.
Yeah, that makes sense. Attribution is so challenging for many SMBs today because you're leaving it up to an algorithm or and that's all you have. And there's really no way of knowing what, you got to trust. It used to be you could target more specifically on certain digital platforms, and a lot of that's changed, hasn't it?
It has. And I think like we hear the term that AI is a black box, and there's certain types of AI that are, we can nerd out as much or as little as you want today on AI. I think what we do, and I think this goes back to some of the things we do in healthcare and pharma where it's more commonplace is control groups. So what would happen otherwise, right? And so the only way to do that is really to take a 10 or 20% of the population, have them as a holdout group that's representative of the full population, and they should get business as usual, what they would normally get. And if we can apply this AI prediction and personalization to that other 80%, we can look at how many visits per month does that group have, what's their attrition rate, what percent purchase PT or have a higher secondary spend. And it's very scientific, right? It's like a randomized control trial, but it's really critical, because then you can attribute what's working and not working. It's how the AI gets smarter. It doesn't know if the prediction's good if you don't have that baseline of a control group. And I think for small business owners, understanding, is this making a difference to my bottom line or top line, is critical. And so everything we do, not just in a pilot or an MIT peer-reviewed study, everything's with a control group. It's all fully transparent. And we're trying to bring that approach to everything we do.
Yeah, it's funny. It's not funny. It's just real. Even in beyond SMBs, when you ask people what their cost of acquisition is and you start looking under the hood at what they're basing that on, a lot of organizations really don't know the answer to that question. Do you think that's fair?
I do think it's fair. I think we see a lot of like, what's my cost per lead, right? If you're talking the acquisition part of the funnel, and if you jam your funnel with a lot of low quality leads, that number can look good, but it's not going to show up on your balance sheet the way you want to. And so it's, how do you think about that marketing funnel? And how do you find the right people? I think the other thing, to your point, it's pretty simple. You've got your customer acquisition costs and you've got your lifetime value. And so a $200 customer acquisition cost might be terrible if they're going to stay 2 months and then they're gone, or if they're going to stay for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years and they're going to purchase PT. $200 could be an exponential ROI. And so it's, how do we start to use data and AI to think full member lifecycle?
And that's interesting because in many marketing dynamics in the organizations that I own and run and others that I've advised, there really isn't the connection between the real margin flow through on lifetime value and what that cost of acquisition is. It's not as common as you think it is. It seems very logical to you and I, but a lot of people, they're looking at just generating revenue. They're not even looking at, well, what type of customers are cherry customers, we call them. They're different margins for different groups. They're different. So you have to be mindful of all these things to make good business choices, right?
Totally agree. And I think like in the fitness industry, I was reading an URSA report, I think it was from last year, and I think there's over 8 times spent on marketing or acquisition than there is retention. And it's, I think, almost now 10 times more expensive to acquire than retain. And so I think there's, you can argue there's parts of AI and data that are making the world maybe not as fun a place. But I think for business owners, whether you've got 2 clubs, whether you've got in-home connected fitness or you're the largest health plan in the world, we can start to connect some dots and help organizations make more informed decisions, both that make them more profitable and maximize their financial returns. And the good news is those same KPIs should improve health outcomes for the people they serve.
Yes, exactly. No, that's well said. So Spencer, AI in general, I was mentioning to you earlier, Amy's talk at South by Southwest. I'll have Amy Webb. I'll have the link if y'all want to see it, on trends in 2024 and beyond. And of course, it's funny. I kind of got off the keynote circuit in the last year only because I was talking about AI 8 years ago, and people didn't know what it was. They really didn't understand it. But neither here nor there. Now today, some of these keynotes, they get up and they go AI, and then that's the end of the talk, right? And so I kind of took a year off for all this to kind of find its footing. But when we talk about AI, because there's so many different misconceptions or maybe oversimplifications when you talk about general artificial intelligence, large, language models, or machine learning, or so. Tell us about your views on AI in general. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's an important topic, and the shift has gone from what is AI to what's my AI strategy, which is, as you said, being at V for the past 6+ years. It's exciting shift. I think there's a lot of noise out there, and so
Yep.
I love to have these conversations, especially in smaller groups, and less the PowerPoint get everyone excited about AI or terrified of the Terminator. So a very good forum. I think what we like to start with, when we being V, and it's also my personal belief, is I think it's 88% of AI implementations still fail.
Yep.
And I think the reason is because it's not a one size fit all. We're not at artificial general intelligence, and it needs to be verticalized and it needs to be tuned on a continual basis to provide good results for an organization. So me personally, taking my V hat off, if someone came in and said, I have the perfect algorithm or to do X, Y, and Z that's going to create perfect emails or ads, or I would be skeptical if they didn't really understand your industry and your business. And so that would be my first thought. I think the reason they fail is because you need to really understand the business problem, and you need technology that can help make people superhuman, is the way we like to think about it, right? And so how do you increase their bandwidth and effectiveness, whether it's a data analyst, a data scientist, a GM at a health club, a nurse at a hospital? And so I would personally oversimplify and break AI into 3 buckets. So the first I would consider predictive analytics, which means how do we use this historical data for those actual people in a de-identified, anonymized way, or their digital twins or their lookalikes, to help predict the future. It sounds futuristic, and you're not going to do it perfectly, but history repeats itself, as they say, and it's the best predictor of what could happen. And so I think predictive analytics is here to stay. We have more data than ever because of phones and wearables and our presence on the web. And so I think there's strong ways to deliver both predictiveness and personalization based on predictive analytics. So that's what I would consider bucket 1. I think bucket 2, I would refer to as machine learning, which means take the predictive analytics. Let's say I predict Bryan. Let's say he's been working out on his in-home connected fitness device 3 times a week. And we predict, based on some data we see on him and people like him, that he's going to start to disengage. And we can do that, let's say, 3 months in advance. So it's not too late. What do we do about it? Do we offer him a free fitness consultation? Do we give him a call and ask how things are going? Do we send him an automated email? I don't think we know, but I think what machine learning is really good at is creating a framework that's like A/B testing on steroids. So you can have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you can say what works best for people like Bryan, whether it's a reward, it's an offer, it's a general check-in to see how you're doing, what's going on in your life. And what machine learning really is it's an advanced way for computers to create that feedback loop and start to learn. So you're able to predict, intervene, or offer a reward and learn. And the third bucket, AI, I think, can mean a lot of things. We're talking about generative AI is the ability either to automate different things, or it's the ability to create content. And that's where you hear about ChatGPT or Midjourney for text to imagery. And I think all are moving at a rapid pace, some faster than others, but I think the more parameters, like take ChatGPT as an example, the amount of it's using data on the web, and that's growing exponentially, and it's getting feedback loops back to that machine learning from you and I and a lot of people who are using it, and you give it that thumbs up or thumbs down, or you ask it a follow-up question, it learns. And I do think in the next 5 years or so, I don't think it's going to replace a marketer or someone who's creating email templates, as an example, but I think it's going to help them much more quickly fine-tune and personalize almost at a one-to-one level using data. Say, hey, I need an ad for my Meta account that's going to speak to this specific audience. And I want it to test all these different shades of purple in this different font and an image that's much more likely to resonate with that individual. That's where I think generative AI gets really exciting.
Yeah, that's so true and so on point. And I think the limiting factors that I'm curious about as far as where this goes are two things. Number one, there's not enough data. That's the IoT dynamic of more data is needed. And then secondly is the value of compute. Like right now, the reason NVIDIA's stock is through the roof, and the reason so many people are talking about power demand and things like this is the limits to this are really the amount of data that's feeding into the machine and the amount of compute that's available for the market. Do you think that's generally true?
I think it's 100% true. And whether it's true or not that Sam Altman and OpenAI are going to get $7 trillion, that
Yes.
whether it's off by a factor of 7, it's still a lot of money. And it's because you're going to need compute. I think it hits my technical ceiling once we start going into microchips and all that fun stuff and deep tech. But I think in general, it's the ability to access data. We can talk data privacy and security and all that stuff, which is it has been paramount. And I think given the rapid innovation of AI will be critical, something I'm both excited and sometimes keeps me up at night a little bit. And then it's how do you make the compute available in a way where, like OpenAI, every time you query something on ChatGPT or you create an image on Midjourney, there's cost to that. And I don't think people, given like what they're used to with social media, they're not used to paying for things like that. And so the business models around generative AI will be interesting. And like anything, there'll be economies of scale. But right now, it's really expensive to do what's being done on the generative side.
It is. And it's different, but similar. When Google started being dominant in search, they located their main data warehouses near Washington State, where hydroelectric power was widely available for these kind of reasons. And to your point, most people aren't aware of these behind the scenes kind of economic realities of what it takes to deliver that firepower, because really large language learning models and those things were available a while ago. Like this is nothing new. What's changed is the ability to have that much computing power to be able to do the things that are being done with a lot of data, right?
You're spot on. And I think like today, if I have a question like, what does Bryan O'Rourke think about AI? My gut reaction would be to go to Google, and that's free to me, right? I'm typing it in. And for some things, it's awesome. And Google has investments in AI, as I think all the large tech players will. And so I think what will happen over time, we talk CAC LTV, they're in the CAC phase. They're trying to create a behavior change with consumers to start using a large language model as their interface for multimodal image, text, voice, visual, video, all that good stuff. And as the cost to serve them comes down and the LTV goes up, it's becoming that interface that they think. And I believe over time, people will use to answer their questions or get information, or even have agents, if you will, do their bidding on a personal and professional level.
That's right. No, I concur with you, Spencer. I think that's absolutely what's going on. So in your experience, some words of wisdom for the audience that I know they'll appreciate, given your entrepreneurial background, the things you've described with how V is doing the things they're doing, our conversations about everything in the business and these trends. Do you have some pearls of wisdom or insight for people that are listening here and going, I'm launching a business or I have a business, and what should you be thinking about? What experience should you be reflecting upon given all this change going on in the market?
Yeah, I will do my best with my pearls of wisdom. And I think this probably comes from some scars in a good way. I think that's how people learn. And I think on podcasts or in general, people just make everything seem rosy all the time. It never is in startups and entrepreneurship. Always rosy. There's ups and downs, and I find it very rewarding. So I think the number one thing I would say is work with people that you enjoy working with and really respect. It's awesome to work on problems you're really excited about, which would be number 2. Be passionate about what you do. But we spend more time oftentimes with people that we work with than our family. And if you're not enjoying those interactions, it's not going to be a very happy and fulfilling day, week, month, years in life. And so I think who you're working with, I think I would say a product market fit nerd. I love that early stage of how do you really focus on a problem and just become obsessed with your customer on how they're solving it today. Why are they solving it that way? And are there either innovative or more tactical ways to help them solve that problem? And I think once you find product market fit, you have an A+ team, that's great. If you have a C team, that's not as great, but product market fit is what you need to be able to scale a business. And so whether it's V 5 years ago or it's other people that I talk to, you need to be really honest with yourself around what problem are you solving? What's your hypothesis on why you can solve it better than what's in market today? Are people willing to pay for it, and create a flywheel to validate and invalidate those hypotheses as quick as possible and learn and iterate?
That's a lot of wisdom right there, Spencer. Everyone that's listening in, he just said a mouthful. I would say the third, I agree with both those points. That is a wisdom. The third thing I would add to that is resilience. What happens when you get punched in the mouth? That's the third thing, right?
Absolutely. And I think if you're not getting punched in the mouth and you're not pushing the envelope enough, there's a Mike Tyson quote in there that probably isn't good for a Spotify language, but everyone's got a plan, as they say. And I think it's a good thing. Like, you need to push boundaries. If you think about some of the most disruptive ideas and technologies of the last decade, if you told me them back then, I would say you're crazy, right? And it's okay to be crazy. You get punched in the mouth and then you iterate and you learn. It's those that are brave enough to push those boundaries that change the world, right? So exciting opportunities ahead.
Yes, it's so true. Spencer, your contact information, how can people get in touch with you? Of course, we're going to have links to V in the show notes and your background and the video I talked about from Amy. How can people reach you?
Yeah, so my email is Spencer, SPENCER @v.co, no M, just to make it tricky for everyone. Passionate about the world of health and wellness and its intersection with technology. So always happy to chat and help where I can.
Spencer, it's been a pleasure, and I know the team at V is fantastic, and I know there are a lot of people that are being helped with your approach using these tools. So keep up the great work, and we so appreciate you making time.
Much appreciated, Bryan. Thanks for having me.
Hello, listeners. This is Bryan O'Rourke, and thanks so much for listening to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. The podcast is made possible by the Fitness Industry Technology Council, a consortium of global brands working together to enhance the adoption of technologies in the fitness space. Our company, Videri Ventures, which is invested in Vertimax, Montezuma, Gold's Gym, Houston, Texas, and Fitness 24/7 Thailand, also underwrites the podcast, along with our service companies, Integris Advisors, Moon Mission Media, and others. Please feel free to share this podcast with your colleagues. And if I can be of any assistance to you, don't hesitate to reach out, bryanko'rourke@gmail.com, or find me on any of the major social networks. Have a great day, and thanks for listening.